Hi everyone, Steve Crosby here. Thanks for joining me again on this edition of Monday Morning Musings. We are going to talk about the topic of humility. Humility. I was once in a church that taught something called worm theology. Humility was preached incessantly in an imbalanced way. And here's how it ended up. There was a gentleman, young man, quite talented musically, quite gifted vocally, and he had got up and done a special number, and he really had done very well. And afterwards, different folks went up to him and complimented him on it, and he kind of did this, foot shuffling, knuckles dragging, oh, it really wasn't that good. This was wrong and that was wrong and this was wrong and that was wrong. And just this as if humility, as if deflecting a compliment was the essence of humility. So after the service, we were all down around, table eating and fellowshipping, whatever, and somebody was talking with him, and I was in part of the group that was where this was going on, and another person said to him exactly what he said about himself about not being that good. His exact words. And the young man got offended and angry and upset, and all the other brother did was agree with the things that he had said of himself earlier. That is an indication where humility is rhetorically spoken about, but has no substantive reality in the life of the person talking about it. Humility is like patience. Anybody can do a sermon about patience. You can do a word study on patience. But you don't know anything about patience just because you've done a biblical word study on patience. You won't know anything about patience until your patience is tried. It's the same thing with humility. Anybody can talk about it and talk about the values of it. And of course, they spin it into something that it isn't. We're going to get to that in a minute. But there's more than humility than doing a word study. But I'm going to go ahead and give you the Greek word for it. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. My Greek isn't that good. So it's up on the screen for you. In our culture, humility has a servile connotation to it. That phony, if you carry yourself in a certain way, if you're self-deprecating, if you deflect a compliment, if you are like forever apologizing for yourself, and out of your mouth every 2 seconds, I'm sorry, and that's kind of what our culture, how it looks at humility, both culturally and biblically. Well, that long Greek word that was just up on the screen, that's not what it means. And by the way, like so many things in the scriptures, the early church took terms from their culture and redefined them. Just like agape. Many of you are probably familiar with the fact that agape was a term that the church applied in a new way. And they did the same thing with this Greek word for humility. Now, Aristotle said it was an admirable quality, but very hard for humanity to realize. And it came down to mean someone who was, and this is going to surprise you, large of soul, or a magnanimous person. Otherwise, the way they defined it, it was all about how I handled myself or conducted myself with other people. Ties into their understanding of the word honor. And we've talked about that in our Submitted Culture seminar, so I'm not going to do that here. That's not what it meant for the early church, and that's not what it means in the scriptures. It's not about the largeness of our soul, but it's about the littleness of our soul before God our Father. It's not a glorified virtue of human personality. And that's what I want to leave you with today. We'll pick up part 2 in the next one. It's not a quality of personality. And so often, people will attribute humility to nothing other than a personality style. We'll pick up more next time. That's what he said for today. Thanks for joining us.